So, what do we do about all this? Scrum Masters are teachers, coaches, guides. Scrum Masters also serve not only the developers, but the product owner and the larger organization on the Scrum team's behalf. It's another dysfunction out there if we're only focusing on the developers. It's kind of skipping 2/3 of the job. And I don't know about you, but I've never been able to skip 2/3 of a job that I've signed up for. It's like you look at the description and go, yeah, I'm not going to do that part. No, I'm not going to do this part at all either. I'm just going to do this one part a lot. That doesn't even make sense. So teaching isn't doing for somebody, but you're enabling them to do for themselves. And recently I had a newer Scrum Master say, but I don't have any training materials. Sure you do. You got the free Scrum guide. Go download the PDF, or if you don't want to download it, just even look at it online. There's your free training materials. And it's not necessarily about, covering a PowerPoint like I may be doing with you here. It's about that knowledge acquisition. So here's another teaching trick you can use: having people own those ideas for themselves instead of renting them from you or even from me. I ask people to read very specific bullets or very specific paragraphs in the official guide. So in order to do that, I'll give them the URL and say, here's the page number I want you to go to. And then when we come back after, 4 or 5 minutes of quick reading, because people can read pretty quickly, now let's talk about it. What'd you learn? What surprised you? And it's amazing how much clearer things become when they read for themselves, when they obtain that knowledge for themselves. So don't get hung up on thinking you need pretty training materials or anything like that. You got the Scrum guide. So make sure that you're teaching and not taking that opportunity away, helping them help themselves. And when we talk about coaching, coaching is not fixing other people. So the big thing to remember is that you want people to do for themselves. So stop saying, this is what you need to do, and ask powerful questions. Ask a lot of powerful questions. Those are ones that aren't necessarily answered with a yes or no. What could you do next that would add value? How will you do it? When will you do it? Now, if we do need to get down to a yes or no question that's least powerful, I save those for kind of a last resort. If there's somebody who isn't really getting on board despite coaching efforts or despite their teammates holding them accountable, I'm going to ask a really direct question. I'm going to say, are you telling me that you're willing to do this, but you don't know how yet? They might say, yeah. Okay, we can fix the I don't know how yet. Let's get you pairing with somebody. Let's talk about how you like to learn. But if I say, are you telling me you're not on board with working with the team? No, I'm not. Well, now we got a people problem. And that isn't necessarily your lane. That's where you might need to talk to a manager in the organization or whoever is asking us to change the very way we do work. If you've exhausted all of your coaching efforts, that would be a last resort. I don't reach for that right away, but I also, after wasting everybody else's time and my own time, may get real specific with one of those questions. Another thing to focus on is facilitation. Facilitation has nothing to do with being the note taker or the scribe or the admin. So we can look to our friend the dictionary, and it's literally helping to bring about, helping to move forward or move along. And in this virtual world, oof, facilitation isn't only needed more so than it was when you had the luxury of being face to face in your organizations. It's so much harder. So it requires focus, it requires preparation. It's not something you just wing. So Scrum Masters can do a lot of good, not only for themselves, but their Scrum team by preparing. If you're asked to facilitate Scrum events, you may be asked to facilitate refinement conversations for sure with the Scrum team. But what about with the product owner and some stakeholders? product owner may ask you to neutrally facilitate in case they're worried about going down a rabbit hole with some stakeholders, or they just even want to keep it moving along. So that facilitation is going to take not only that preparation and focus, but you may even have to have some ground rules established at the beginning of the session, not only about are we going to record or are we not going to record, kind of like tonight. Are we going to have people throw stuff in the chat as a way to save a copy of the information for everybody? Or are we going to take turns during the conversation? Because once again, you should not fall into the trap of being everybody's scribe, because then it takes away from the focus of what you're supposed to be paying attention to. And we're recording right now, so I'm not in the interactive part of our session, but we'll get there. But when we get there, I'll tell you one of the things I like to do in Zoom that happens to be my preferred medium in these kinds of conversations. I use what's called the gallery view. That's that little button that looks like a Rubik's Cube or the Brady Bunch symbol, whichever one of those dates me the least. And then I'll stretch that window out onto my really big monitor, because Zoom will let you have up to 49 faces on one big screen. So as the facilitator, my head is on a swivel. Yeah, it's nice to look right at the camera to make eye contact, but then I can't necessarily see somebody raising their real hand or even the virtual one if they're using that feature in the tool. I also can't see facial expression, body language, because that tells me a lot about the mood, even in the virtual room. When you see shoulders slumped or not, or you see somebody's brow all crinkled up, or you see somebody nodding, then that tells you, oh yeah, they agree. So there's so many non-verbal cues we still can pick up on, even with the cameras. When we say, no, nobody wants their camera on, well, maybe you don't have to be so binary about it. Maybe it doesn't have to be it's on the entire time or not. Maybe we institute, could we at least have it on for daily scrum to kind of baby step people into it? Or make it fun. Have a theme, like where we wear our favorite sports jersey, or we have a Star Wars day, or we have a concert tea day. And so people want to turn their camera on to share that with their colleagues. Maybe you do some sort of a modified fishbowl, where if you're going to talk, you turn your camera on. But when you aren't talking, you can turn it off, so that at least while you're communicating, people can see some of those cues. But if we aren't doing it both ways, we do miss a lot. And there's no shortage of studies out there if you go looking for them. And the ones that I've poked around in on nonverbal communication, it's anywhere from 60 to 90% of the message being conveyed comes from nonverbal, comes from the way we say it, the gestures we're using. You can pick up a little bit from vocal inflections and whatnot, but it's more powerful when we can add all those nonverbal cues. So that's the other thing I would advise, is get really great at facilitating, which might mean you need to really actively listen as well. Really tune in to what's being said, what's not being said, and making sure that we're getting everybody involved the chance to participate or to speak.